And Jesus is saying, yes, but the restoration of all things is here. The spirit of Elijah, the spirit is here to restore the hearts of the fathers and the sons generationally. It's all here. It's all present. How do I know that? Because I'm here. That's how I know it. And I carry with me the spirit of Elijah. I carry with me this spirit of reconciliation. I carry with me the spirit of restoration. I carry that. It's resident in me. Where I go off that mountaintop, I've already heard that the restoration of all things is here. All things are yours. All things are possible. They've been released. They're here. But what does it require? If you have faith, if you believe, that releases it through me. If I don't think I have any money in my bank account, I probably won't write a check. If the Father tells me write a check, write whatever you want. Once I said, I don't know, maybe I said, write what you want in the name of Jesus. So we're coming down into the valley. Russ, why don't you do a good job reading? Would you read verses 14 through 18?
When they came back to the disciples, they saw a large crowd around them, and some scribes arguing with them. And immediately, when the entire crowd saw him, they were amazed and began running up to greet him. And he asked them, "What are you discussing with them?" One of the crowd answered him, "Teacher, I brought you my son, possessed with a spirit which makes him mute. And whenever it seizes him, it dashes him to the ground, and he foams at the mouth and grinds his teeth and stiffens out. And I told your disciples to cast it out, and they could not do it."
So, we've got all things. We've got many things. The Son of Man is going to suffer many things. I'm not trying to be a wise guy, but so are you. We're going to suffer many things. And we're going to enjoy many things. It's all part of the all things. Let's go down to the valley and see some many things. So we're down in the valley now. And just as Jesus approaches, he sees that his disciples and the scribes are having a good go at each other. They're arguing about something. I call these scribes experts without experience. They know everything, but not the things that they should know, which is God. They have no experience. The disciples, on the other hand, they're not experts. They know nothing. But they've had these experiences with Jesus. They've seen demons come flying out of people. They've seen all kinds of healings. They've seen it all. And if you ask them what happened, got me. I don't know how he did it. I don't really care. I haven't been to school. I've been out fishing. I catch fish with coins in their mouths. What do I know? I'm just walking this thing out with him. And he does these amazing things. You can see how they're disputing. Yes, but you don't understand. The nature of healing, you could hear the scribes doing their teachings. They can teach you all day long about Malachi 4. And meanwhile, they're chopping off the head of John the Baptist. Absolutely fascinating to have all this head knowledge and not know God at the same time. They're experts without experience, and they're arguing with the disciples. It sounds to me like chaos. Do you remember weeks ago when we were talking about Genesis, in the beginning of Genesis, there's chaos and God does something about it. Mm-hmm. Picture Genesis now. Just picture that Genesis. Jesus walking in to this chaos. And he knows what a son does. A son restores order to chaos. It's not supposed to be chaos. We know who the creator of chaos is. And it's not God. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to restore something. And it's just as Russ read, it's fascinating to read the story, depending on how you read it. There's chaos. And out of this chaos, not the disciples, not the scribes, the crowds come running to him. I like to look at it like it's their mountaintop experience in the valley. All they see is Jesus. As they were amazed, they're running to Jesus, not to church. They're running to Jesus. I had said before, because people, when we were in England, they were trying to tell me how to build the church. As far as I was concerned, it wasn't mine. It's his church. And I'm working with him. And all I knew was this, that where Jesus is present, where his spirit is present, people will run to him. You won't have to have the best website in town, the best worship team. I'll tell you what, when he's present and people know that he's around and he's in town, they will be running to him. Because that's what people do. They run to him. And that's what's going on here. They're coming to Jesus, the mountaintop experience. Jesus confronts the scribes with the question that we heard Russ read. What's going on? What are you guys talking about? Now, I hope we don't actually believe that he doesn't know what they're talking about. But he gives them the opportunity to speak up and say, We're a bunch of experts without experience. And we're trying to tell your disciples why they weren't able to cast out the demon. We've been watching this whole show. You guys are a bunch of he just gives them the opportunity. What are you talking about? My methodology, my relationship with my Father, the amount of demons that we have cast. I mean, what are you guys talking about? Before the scribes can even answer, I don't believe they were going to answer them anyway, but before they can answer, this dad with this demon-possessed son, this unclean spirit in this kid, this dad cries out, I can identify with him in terms of a father who yells out, I'll tell you what, can you hold your little seminars at some other time? Right now I've got like a serious need, and it's not to discuss theological issues. I'm really not interested in how this thing takes place. All I know is my kid is suffering. That's all I know. That's all I know. That's real to me. It's more real than all the commentaries and whatever else you can read and write. Well, why does the Bible say this? Well, how old is that? It's kind of like, for crying out loud, aren't you more interested in how the suffering can be restored? Isn't that really what we're here and really about? Do we carry it or don't we? This is real. Life 101, reality. I am not I used to be, into the hyper spirituality. I'm not there anymore. I'm just not in that hyper state. I live in the valley. I'm constantly talking with people and involved in situations in lives, like you all are. This is not Steve's story. We're all in the valley with these real situations of real suffering, real pain, real problems that seem I don't even know. It's hard to even take a step forward unless I keep reminding myself, I am not alone. The restorer of all things is here in the valley. He's here. And he's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that I could ask or think. According to what, though? According to the power that's in me. We're in the valley. This father yells out. Jesus has already said, there's many things among the all things. All things are available, but you'll go through many things. We won't do it now, but sometime go back and read Romans 8. We all like the verse at 28, that all things work together for the good to those who are called according to his purpose, to those who love God. And as you go on there, it talks about suffering. And then it talks about all things being ours. It's fascinating how we've taken the verse in one particular way, but Paul's also insinuating, those all things, all the part of the all things, there's some nasty things in there. But Jesus, when he introduced his ministry, Matthew 11:27, he says, the Father has given me everything. He's opened it up. Pow! Would you read verses 19 and 20?
And he answered them and said, O unbelieving generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring him to me. And they brought the boy to him. And when he saw him, immediately the spirit threw him into a convulsion, and falling to the ground, he began rolling about and foaming at the mouth.
If I'm stopping, I'm just trying to help us all to actually picture what was going on. Because a lot of times we just read. And this is real. If you kind of are following this picture. Jesus throws out there something that sounds a bit like a harsh question. A statement and a question. What I would say is this, is that a few chapters earlier he had commissioned these guys to cast out demons. All things are mine, cast out demons. He had commissioned them, and they did. And here, quite clearly, the disciples were doing something unsuccessfully according to the dad. So something's wrong. We don't know what it is yet, but something is wrong. And Jesus, I don't want to say explodes because I don't really see it that way. I just see him as immediately giving them the key of faith. Every chapter in Mark, just about, Jesus says something or we read something about Jesus that normally we don't contribute to Jesus. Chapter 3, verse 5.
He looked around at them angrily and was deeply saddened by their hard hearts. Then he said to the man, Hold out your hand. So the man held out his hand and it was restored.
So that's the restoration and it says that he was angry. He was really upset that nobody was doing anything about this guy's crippled hand. And they wouldn't do anything because it was the Sabbath. so nobody even noticed. Jesus is angry, and he heals the guy. But it says he was angry. You don't see many verses saying Jesus is angry. In chapter 4, verses 39 and 40,
Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. But he said to them, Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith?
like, what do you guys, how come you don't have any faith? Why are you so afraid? It does sound a bit, depending on how you read it, it's hard when you're reading. Unless you know Jesus, it's hard to tell exactly how he's saying such things. In chapter 6, verses 49 through 52.
But when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, for all they saw was him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. And he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased, and they were utterly astounded, for they did not understand about the loaves, but their hearts were hardened.
That particular verse in there is just basically saying what their heart condition was like. What did I say? 7 verses 17 through 19?
Then Jesus went into a house to get away from the crowd, and his disciples asked him what he meant by the parable he had just used. Don't you understand either? He asked. Can't you see that the food you put into your body cannot defile you? Food doesn't go into your heart, but only passes through the stomach and then goes into the sewer. By saying this, he declared that every kind of food is acceptable in God's eyes.
In chapter 8, it's a little bit longer, verses 13 through 18.
And he left them, got into the boat again, and went to the other side. Now they had forgotten to bring the bread, and they had only one loaf with them in the boat. And he cautioned them, saying, Watch out, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, and the leaven of Herod. And he began discussing with one another the fact that they had no bread. And Jesus, aware of this, said to them, Why are you discussing the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? Having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up? They said to him, 12.
I mean, as we're reading these are not kind of like the conversation I want to have with Jesus, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I got a funny feeling I fall in that category. Yeah, and also the lack of when he says, don't you get it?
Yeah.
I mean, when he says that, that means you don't get it.